Alright, so continuing the 3.3 function notation. So yesterday you did some evaluating. So if, like f of 2, it meant that you plugged in 2, and stuff like that. So today, the directions could be something like this. For h of x, and they use different letters sometimes, and that's okay. It doesn't really change the meaning. For h of x equals 2/3 x minus 5, find the value of x for which h of x equals -7. Excuse me. So basically what this is saying is it wants to know what number do you plug in, and then you do the problem, but the answer is -7. So if you look at, like, we have an h of x right here, and then it tells us, well, h of x equals -7. It's saying, like, those are the same things. So in this original, like, function, I can put -7 where the h of x is, and then I just solve that for x, and I'll have my answer. So +5 and then you can do this in the fraction part in like one step, but I think it's easier sometimes to just say, well, the 3 on the bottom means divide. So if I'm going to move it to the other side, I need to multiply. And I would get -6 equals 2x. Like, the 3 just reduces itself out. And then it's pretty simple to just divide. So what this is saying is if you plugged in -3 and then worked it out, you would get -7. Okay, so you'll have a section of problems that it just says find the value of x, so the function has the given value. You just want to, like, instead of plugging in the number for x, you're plugging in the number for h of x or t of x or f of x or whatever. You're making an equation out of it, so all your problems should start off looking something like that. Not plugging it in for x, but plugging it in for the original thing. Okay? Then you'll have a few problems where, like a couple where you just have to read a graph. Okay? And so on a graph, the graphs that you're going to look at, like, they do kind of like draw them like this, but they're really looking at like this top right hand corner. And so normally we'd have like a y here, but when we talk about functions, it could also be f of x or g of x or whatever letter is used in the problem. And so hopefully very simply, like, let's say had, there was a graph, and it looked like that, and it said like it's something's being modeled. So it'll say like find x if f of x equals 4. So all you want to do is, so f of x is the y-like part, so you want to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so right there f of x is 4, and then you're just going to go over to the graph and then say, well, like, what's the x part? Oh, the x part is 2. That's it. If it said, what's the value of f of x, like if x equals 3, f of x equals what? So you do the same thing, just opposite. So you go on the x-axis, 1, 2, 3, and you just go up and see like where does it hit, and then kind of look over and say, okay, well, at 3, if I go over to f of x, that's 6. Okay, so you're just reading the graph. All right, now we're gonna, so you're gonna, like this first group, you're gonna plug them in, okay? Then you're gonna read a couple graphs. Hopefully that's easy for you. Start to do some graphing of lines. Okay, and so for this chapter, or for this section rather, and this always works. So if I'm going to graph f of x equals 2x minus 5, okay, we're going to plug in numbers for x like we did yesterday. So we're going to plug in 3 numbers. Okay, 1 needs to be positive, 1 needs to be negative, and then the other one can be whatever choice you want, just some other number. I highly recommend 0. Plugging in 0 is really easy. Okay, so I typically pick 2, negative 2, and 0. And it's not wrong to pick 1, negative 1, and 0. I just like my points to be spread out a little bit more. It gives me a better idea of what the graph should look like. So, so we're going to create coordinates to plug in on a graph. Okay, so I'm going to plug in 2 for x, and then, I don't know, I'm going to get some number. I'm going to plug in 0 for x, and I'm going to plug in negative 2 for x, and then I'll have those 3 coordinates to put on a graph. Okay, so if I plug in 2, I'm going to get 4 minus 5 or negative 1. So when I plugged in 2, I got negative 1. And then I'm going to plug in 0. Two times 0 is 0. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. And then I'll plug in negative 2. And I get negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. So there's the 3 points that I have. So 2, -1, 0, -5, and -2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if I did it right, they should all line up. Okay, so there, like I said, there's really not a wrong choice in terms of numbers to pick, but you do need to pick one positive and one negative number because sometimes the graph acts differently on a negative side versus a positive side. So, but you could pick 0, 1, and 2. That could work. There's only one exception to that. You can have the value, and then we're going to graph. So we've got 1, and that is if you have a fraction. So if you have a fraction, pick the denominator. So I'm going to pick 3. I'm still going to pick 0, but then I'm going to pick -3. And the reason behind that is that when I do that, the the fraction will go away. So if I have 1/3 times 3, and I did write the 3 up higher for a reason, okay, it's because the 3's just reduce. Okay, so when I plugged in 3, I got 2. Well, 1/3 times 0 is just 0. I picked 0 because anytime you multiply by 0, it's 0. So it just makes it a lot easier in my opinion. And then -3. So be careful of this one because the 3's do reduce, but I still have that negative there. So it's -1 plus 1 or 0. Okay, so we do need to be careful when we plug in that negative number. So 3, 2, 0, 1, and -3, 0. Okay, so on your assignment, you're going to have to graph 6 lines. I need to show you that one. There's 2 fractions. One has a 5 as the denominator, so pick 5, 0, and -5. And then the other one has a 2 as a denominator, so pick 2, -2, and 0, which is kind of what we started out with. Okay. And notice does the function to other thing on there. So there's one of them that could be something like this. There's no like x to plug into or anything. So remember I said that our function g of x, f of x, h of x, we could write it as y. Like in y equals mx plus b, just like a y. So y equals 3 what that means is on the y-axis, go to 3, and it's actually a horizontal line like that. And the reason is because all the points on this line, no matter where I put them, the y part is 3. So maybe this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, comma 3. And maybe this is like, I don't know, 9, comma 3. And this is like negative 2, comma 3. Or negative 5, comma 3. So, like if you write the coordinates of each of these, the y number is all 3. Okay, so you'll have one of those. And the rest of them you'll have numbers to plug in. Okay, so kind of to review, the first set is those for what value of x. 3 examples of graphing. All right, so we're going to start to get into the graphing world here, especially going into next week. Okay, which everybody says graphing's hard, I don't like it. And it really isn't a very difficult concept if you just spend a little bit of time on it. So hopefully we'll get through it and you'll feel like you're better at it than you are right now. All right, so have a great day. Remember that tomorrow you have a quiz over sections 1, 2, and 3. So some of this stuff that you see here today will be on the quiz tomorrow. All right, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.